wow, it's been a while. We have an excuse. We had another kid. We thought it might be easier the second time. It wasn't. The two kids thing is really hard. And it's just like taking time away from everything except for reading. And as I thought about what I wanted to do on YouTube when I was coming back, I realized what I'm most interested in is like connecting, sharing things, hearing things from the community, sharing experiences. And for me, the top of that list is always books. I love hearing about what people are reading. I love recommending books. I love getting to know someone and then chatting about books that they might like. And I've seen a lot of like booktubers who are reading, 20 books, 30 books. And then I find myself watching what their top 5 are. And I'm like, that's 25% of books. What am I going to do with this? That's not that many to be pulling from. So I figured at this point, I've read a lot of books. Why not share the ones that are 5 out of 5, the best books, the top 1% of books out of all the ones that I've read over the years. And I'm going to do it in a bit of a different style video, like this one take style where it's just us and I'll riff on the book. And then at the end, I'm just going to upload this because the goal is, like I said, it's for me to maybe turn you on to something that you haven't heard about or haven't read. And for me to start a discussion with you or whoever's in the comments for just guidance on what to read next. So what is a 5-star book and how many do I have? I don't know. I grabbed some off my shelf that I love, that I've read multiple times, that I had to pull down. Some I don't have that I'll just mention. I read nonfiction and I read fiction. Usually a 5-star book is something that I find myself like devouring. That's the only way to describe it. Devouring. Like I love the writing or the wisdom that is coming out of these books. I love the story. I love like how it could change your perspective on something. And fiction and nonfiction can both do that. And when I pulled these, I didn't even put them in an order. I just, we put the kids down and then I was like, I want to do this. And so I grabbed them all off my shelf and they're just in a random order. And I'm going to pick one up and I'll look at it. And I'm sure you'll see the reaction is going to be very pleased because I love all these. And I'll give you some insight about the book or like a few sentences. And then I'll tell you if you should read these books. Holding good books makes me happy. And yeah, so let's just start. Here are some 5-star books. And like I said, of all the books I've read, there's probably only been this is probably only like 1 to 2%. I mean, it's very hard for me to give 5 stars. I'm liberal with 4 stars. I'll give a lot of people like 4 stars, but 5 stars it's like hang on the wall type good. The first one, Endurance. The story of Shackleton. And I didn't know anything about Shackleton. And then I read this book. I was turned on to it from a friend who had read it and he started gifting it to different people. And this book is insane. The journey that they went on, it's the first journey. I'm going to get some facts wrong, but, expedition to the Antarctic. And when you read about what these people went through in order to do this, it is crazy survival stuff. Puts things into perspective. You see what true grit really is. You learn about the hell that they had to go through just for this expedition, the craziness that happens. It's a page turner. It's historical nonfiction. It's a really cool book. I used to fall asleep in history class, so not many of these will be like historic stories. But this one kept me on the edge of my seat, and I loved this book. I think it's a really cool story, and I should probably reread it. Poor Charlie's Almanac. So another, nonfiction, but Charlie Munger, for those of you who don't know, he was one of the heads of Berkshire Hathaway. I think Buffett started it, but Charlie Munger was right there with him from the early days. And he was so wise. He was just such a wise person. In this book, you hear a little bit about his thoughts, things that will really resonate with you. I mean, I don't even know if this is in his book, but for a guy that ended up being one of the richest guys in history, people will ask, how do you get rich? And he'll be like, just live longer, right? Like, because things compound over time. And if you do it right, then the person who lives the longest will be the richest, whatever. But you get some insight into how he thinks and perceives and reasons through stuff, what his recommendations are. He has like a famous bit in here about how to not be successful, like all the things you should do, obsess over other people. And, when I think about the feeling of this book, it's sitting by the fire and listening to someone just super smart tell you interesting stuff. And that's how I felt when I read this, and I loved it. Oh, wow. Okay. So maybe I should have done this in some sort of order here, because this is another nonfiction, and this is my favorite one ever. Shoe Dog. It's Phil Knight's story. It's like his memoir. He's the founder of Nike. And I love this book. This is 6 stars for me. It is the best memoir I've ever read. It is so interesting to hear about how Nike was started. It is not like a linear path here. It's a spiral. You see like all this, how his thinking evolved into Nike and what went into it. And it was just incredible. I mean, this is just an incredible story. And so I could not recommend this book highly enough. I love this book. And this has to be on like a must read if you haven't. Okay. The Agony and the Ecstasy. I guess these organically came out into some sort of order, because this is like historical fiction, nonfiction. It's the story of Michelangelo, who is of anyone I've read about, he's the most interesting person in history. He did the Sistine Chapel. He was a famous sculptor. He did the David. He was forced by the Vatican to do painting, even though his love was sculpting. He was so focused on bringing correct anatomy to his sculptures that he would like dig. He would go to the morgues and dissect people just to learn how the body works in order to sculpt it better. And I read this book when I had the opportunity to go to Italy. And so you read it and you walk down the street, and all of these things, the stories of the sculptures from this book, are lining the streets of Florence and Rome, and his mentors and his proteges, and the painting that was part of this too. I would say transformative. It is a art history crash course in an interesting way. So I would probably fall asleep during art history, but when it's brought to life in this way, again, you devour it and it sticks with you, and you learn these artists, and it's great. I've read it twice. I haven't read it in many, many years. I'll probably reread it at some point, but I think about it, and a lot of the stuff from it is stuck with me. And so this is a 5 out of 5. I had somebody tell me that John Steinbeck wasn't for them because they didn't like Grapes of Wrath, which I haven't read. It's on my list, but this is probably, in my opinion, the best written book of all time. His way with language is fluid. It is poetic with weight. It is not flowery. It hangs in the air. It just like pierces your brain in a good way, in a really good way. And he's one of the greats. He's one of the great American writers. I need to read more of his stuff. I was recommended East of Eden, and from the first 20 to 30 pages, I was truly blown away by his writing. I thought that it was unlike anything that I've ever seen before. It like opened up language, beautiful language. And I still think that this is the most beautifully written book, period. There's a whole segment in here about studying religion and thou mayest and fate versus free will, and but it still reads not like a super dense story, even though it has the weight of a dense story. And so I would say it's a long book. I'm not a huge long book guy, but if it's for you, and you'll know early on if it's for you, then enjoy it, because it's just fantastic. This is like a business how-to book, how to win friends and influence people. It is, it has saved my butt a few times, like the lessons from this, how to just come across as being respectful. Even if you are a respectful person, sometimes that doesn't always come through. And there are different ways to show respect: restraining from talking when you're listening to someone, asking them about their interests. These are all simple things, but this might be my most reread business book, because I find myself constantly going back to it just to like remind myself of one of the lessons from it. And they're practical, they're helpful, they're practical, especially for somebody getting into business or starting their careers. I would put this as like a must read, as a big unlock book. If Steinbeck is the GOAT for prose, not necessarily for storytelling, but for his writing, then Amor Towles is this generation's version of that. And for me, it's A Gentleman in Moscow. Now, unlike Steinbeck, with Towles, I went and I read all of his other work, and I really liked it, but A Gentleman in Moscow is my only 5-star from him. It is just so good. It's about Russia. A guy gets house arrested in a really nice hotel, and there's some political aspect to it of the Bolsheviks, and then there's also this relationship. It's just such an interesting perspective on like family and aging and priorities and needs. I absolutely loved every moment that I read that book. My wife couldn't get through the first 15 pages. And I don't think that's uncommon. I think that, for some people it hits, similar to Steinbeck, and for other people it doesn't. And because it's not like action-y, you have to go in there. It's just like more philosophical. I could see how it would be like less enjoyable for someone to read in their free time if it wasn't resonating with them. I'll put it that way. But for me, it really spoke to me, and I love this book. 5 out of 5 stars. I'm going to mention, really cool book, Alchemy. Great business book. You can see I have it highlighted here. One that I do recommend to a ton of people, because it's written by Rory Sutherland. He was like one of the heads of Ogilvy's psychological practice or something. I don't know. He was high up in an advertising agency, and he's a really bright person, and you learn just such cool things here. It's like the how to win friends and influence people, but of like branding and business think. For example, one thing I remember from that book is presentation is everything. So he talks about being in a meeting with someone, and they're trying to come up with this like beautiful pitch deck that they could send to a client. And at some point, one of the more senior people goes, okay, well, that would be great if we could do it, but if we can't, write them a really nice letter and overnight FedEx it. And the point of that is, people, when they receive that, that's the most important thing. They feel important, and that will get to the same place as if you spend all of this time writing this crazy nice letter, and then you just like everyday mail and it gets there broken. It's about the presentation. And there's just a lot of that sort of stuff. I have one of his quotes hanging on my wall over here, my wall of inspiration. That's an automatic door doesn't replace a doorman. True. obvious, simple, but the heart of that speaks to something more. It's about human connection. It's why, I don't think AI is going to take our jobs right away, because you could have thought that doormen everywhere would be replaced when the automatic doors come out, and look what happens. It's actually a sign of luxury. It's better to have a doorman than an automatic door. Okay, I have a few written down here. Oh, yes, of course. Dungeon Crawler Carl. That's one that I recently read. I read 5 books in a row over the last couple months. Really entertaining, really fun. If you like video games, then absolutely it's a 5 out of 5. The Godfather. Now, this was a book I first read probably 15 years ago at my dad's recommendation, and I loved it. Don't hate me. The Godfather, I like the movie. I never rewatched that movie, ever. The book is better. The book is much better. And I had seen the movie before I read the book, and still, when I was in the book, I was, turning pages and, the stuff like the horse head being in the bed. I think about that more from the book than I do from the movie. So I love the book. 10 out of 10 or 5 out of 5 would recommend. And then the last fiction one that I wrote down was one that it was just so good. The Lords of Discipline by Pat Conroy. It sent me down a lot of Pat Conroy's work. I really like a lot of his stuff. It's about a senior going to a military school, and there's crazy hazing that happens to the freshmen, and there's the first black student who's going through the hazing, and he's like responsible, let's say, for getting him through. And there's just a lot that goes into this, and it is a page turner. It's awesome. Again, I would say if you're watching this and you're into more, not young adults, but you're in that time of life where that is most relevant, either high school, college, finishing up college. I think that's when I found the book, and I loved the different times that I've read it. Fantastic. Let's end here with one that is 5 stars. Did I think this was 5 stars after I finished it? No, but do I find myself thinking about it a lot? I heard it in a restaurant bathroom once, and it made me so happy that I was just like, I can't not give that book 5 stars. The audible's phenomenal. It's Green Lights by McConaughey. So you might be thinking, how is that book like the top 1% of books you've ever read? And I would say to each their own, right? Like for me, I went to UT undergrad. I love McConaughey in general. I love his vibe. I really enjoyed the story. I love the audible narration. And just like a movie that you find yourself rewatching, if I turn it on and listen to it, I'm just kicking it, man. Just happy, and it's fun. It's cool. So I gave that a 5. Okay. I think those are all of my 5s so far. Like I said, a ton of 4s. There are going to be some 5s that I left out, I'm sure. Maybe I'll do like a follow-up video if I think about enough of them. Also might do a video. Maybe I'll do a part 2 where it's like all the short stories that are 5 out of 5, because some of my favorite things that I've ever read are short stories. I think that's it. If you like more of these informal, casual videos, let me know. I mean, I'd love to keep doing them because they just take so much less time. And let me get the content out to you guys. Like I said, the reason I'm doing this is to hear your feedback. If you haven't read any of these books, they sound interesting, I'll sign off on all of them. If you read them and like them, let me know. Agree, disagree, I'm curious. If you have other books that you think I might like, I'm really into a fiction grind right now. Like I spent 5 to 10 years reading a lot of nonfiction, and I just can't stop with the fiction these days. So if you've got some cool fiction recommendations, you think someone can rival Tolles or Steinbeck, or you think I'm missing something, maybe I'll do some Stephen King. because I haven't really done any of that. But anyway, you got it. Thank you so much for watching. And I'll catch you in the next one.